Welcome, 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 welcome. Wilmington, North Carolina. It is Friday. We're back in the house. This is No Covers. The show is called No Covers Live. I'm your host, Dawood El-Amin, coming to you out of the port city of Wilmington, North Carolina. We are so excited today. Today we're going to be on 1490 as well as 104.9. 1180 audience is being brought in now, and you can catch us on the Facebook Live channel as well as the Gospel Joy Facebook Live channel. We're going to try to make sure you get this today. Special guest is in the house with Dr. Umar Johnson. We have him online. We've been waiting for this moment. Last time you all heard from him, Wilmington was on Wilmington on Fire. And so we don't want to delay this interview. Let's bring in our guest, Dr. Umar Johnson. Brother, are you online?
Yes, I am. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me on the show.
Okay, it's our pleasure to have the Prince of Pan-Africanism. I want to start this day because as I told you, I want folks to get to know you as Umar Johnson. The Prince, where did that name come from, the Prince of Pan-Africanism?
That name was a name that I had came up with several years ago because I saw myself as the continuation of the work of the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, whom I would consider the king of Pan-Africanism. And I didn't do much with the name, but some of my supporters got wind of the name and they took it and they ran with it, and that's what I'm known as all around the world now.
It's a fitting title. Because it leads into the my background says you're from North Philly, and growing up in North Philly, I know you were a Garveyite. How did that happen? Because during that time period, it was very little known about Garvey. It was very little known about the Garveyites. So how did you get connected with the Garveyite and the Garveyite mission?
Well, I joined the Universal Negro Improvement Association, the community, the organization founded by Marcus Messiah Garvey in 1914. I joined the Thomas W. Harvey Division 121 here in Philadelphia upon my graduation from undergraduate. So I came out of Millersville University in Lancaster County, PA in 1997, and that's the same year that I joined the UNIA. And ironically and coincidentally and interestingly enough, is for many years, the UNIA, or should I say for my entire life, the UNIA in Philadelphia was located on one of the main avenues where my mother did much of her shopping. And it was right next door to the sneaker store where my mother bought most of the shoes that I wore for most of my life. For my entire life, Garvey and his movement was sitting right in my face, but I didn't actually get formally introduced until I graduated from undergrad.
Wow, great story. So knowing that information with Garvey, most folks will ask, what happened to the movement?
I would say nothing. The UNIA is the oldest continuously running black organization. It's the second oldest continuously running black organization in America from a social or racial uplift position. The NAACP goes back to 1909, but obviously the NAACP is not nationalist. So if we look at overall black uplift organizations, if you want to consider the NAACP a black uplift organization, they would be the oldest. UNIA would be the second oldest. But when you talk about nationalism, black nationalism, or more correctly, revolutionary Pan-African nationalism, the Garvey movement is the oldest, and all the other movements come from us. Elijah Poole, who was a member of the Detroit UNIA, became the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Carlos Cooks of the African Nationalist Pioneer Movement began in the UNIA. The founders of the Rastafari movement began in the UNIA. Many of the black Hebrew congregations began in the UNIA. Every major movement, everyone, although they like to deny it for a lot of different reasons, all of them borrowed, plagiarized, stole, copied, from Marcus Garvey. Those groups would not even exist if there was not a Marcus Garvey. And many of them actually came into existence right after Marcus Garvey's deportation from America. He was put out of the country illegally in 1927. You get the Nation of Islam in 1930. And when you look at most of those organizations, they basically just come in a row. And that is in support of those groups because there's nothing at all wrong with borrowing from a predecessor. Marcus Garvey himself borrowed from predecessors. He said Africa for the Africans, those at home and those abroad. Well, he borrowed Africa from the Africans from one of the grandfathers of Pan-Africanism, also from Pennsylvania, Martin Delany. His Black Star Line steamship is also not without precedent. Martin Delany had ships. Chief Alfred Sam had ships. We had other Pan-Africanists before him. Paul Cuffey, he had ships. You know, the greatness and the glory of Garvey is that he gave Pan-Africanism its first and only international movement. That's what made Garvey great. He did for Pan-Africanism what Michael Jordan did for basketball. They did not invent it, they reinvented it.
Now, a lot of times I notice that a lot of the stances that you take, I think people don't understand them because they don't understand the tenets of being a Pan-African. So can you give the audience some basic what it means to be a Pan-African person? Because
certainly.
Go ahead.
I could summarize Pan-Africanism in 4 quick points. Point number 1, all direct descendants of the mother continent are part of one human family. So whether you are if you're an Afro-Latino in Puerto Rico speaking Spanish, or if you're an Afro-Latino in Cuba, where I was last year speaking Spanish, or whether you are a African in Brazil speaking Portuguese, or in Nigeria speaking Igbo, or in North Carolina speaking Ebonics or English, or in the United Kingdom speaking the Queen's English, no matter where you are on the face of this earth, if you are a direct descendant, if you carry the DNA of Africa, then we all make up one human family. And we identify on the level of that human family before we identify with any other organization or entity that we belong to. So from a Pan-Africanist perspective, you're an African who just so happens to be a Muslim. You're not a Muslim who happens to be African. Your religion is never more important than your race. It's never more important than your culture, okay? Whether you are a Mason, an Elk, whether you're a psychologist, an educator, whether you're an American, a Cuban, a South African, a Nigerian, a Venezuelan, a Haitian, a Jamaican, all that is secondary to being African, which is why we would say American African instead of African American, because African American, you're defining a certain type of an American. So the African is only an adjective. It describes the American you are. We would say American African, because the African is the noun, the American is the adjective. So the American describes the type of an African that you are. So we believe, as Marcus Garvey said, put the race first. Being African is always first. It is always most important. Looking out for your family is what's most critical. It's no different than from, if you look at it from an individual family perspective. You may have a bunch of brothers and sisters. You might change your name. Are they not still your brothers and sisters? You might move to another country, start speaking another language. Are they not still your brothers and sisters? You might become a Muslim or a Jehovah's Witness or a Hebrew or a Nation of Islam. You might become a Nawapi and a God on an earth, you know, a Seventh-day Adventist. But are they not still your family? Of course they are, because you come from the same mother and the same father. And so we take that perspective from the immediate family and we apply it to the global international family. So we are African people first, and anyone who tries to make the African subsequent to another reality will have it rejected. And the reason for that is because God made us Africans. The only group you belong to that God chose for you, the only group you belong to that God chose for you is your race. God made you an African. You made yourself a Muslim. You made yourself a Christian. You made yourself a psychologist, an educator, a North Philadelphian, a Cuban, a Jamaican, or history and circumstance made you that. And guess what? You can give it up tomorrow. You can renounce your American citizenship. You can renounce your Jamaican citizenship. You can give up your Islam. You can renounce your Christianity. You can change anything else you belong to. Because as much as we consider it to be important, all those other memberships are superficial. Anything that can be changed is superficial. The one thing that can't be changed is your Africanity. So we stand on that first. Number 2, self-determination. Whatever is to be done for African people must be done by African people. Whatever is to be done for African people must be done by us without no outside money and no outside help. This is yours to do. God gave the African 2 arms, 2 legs, a brain like every other human. So why do you need them to help you when you have the exact same thing that they have in order to build up themselves? So if we need black families to build a black nation, that means the black family must be built with black people. That means the black man has no business with a white woman. That means the black woman has no business with a white man or Chinese or Arab or non-African Latino or anything else. We must be for ourselves and by ourselves, and we can't be ashamed to do that. We're the only people made to feel insecure and made to think that you're racist and full of hate because you need space and time to yourself. But European Jews take space and time to themselves all the time. You don't see no black people in the European Jewish synagogue, but they're never accused of being racist. Asians take space and time for themselves. Anglo-Saxons take space and time for themselves. But whenever black people try to take space and time for ourselves, we're accused as racist. So we believe in total self-determination. If you got white money in your black organization, it's not a black organization. If you got white people leading and strategizing your black organization, then guess what? It's not a black organization. Just having black people in it don't make it black. It has to be black finance and black control. And the third piece of Pan-Africanism is we all rise together or we don't rise at all. This is critical. This is very critical. This is based on the scientific fact that the treatment of Africans around the world is a direct reflection of the treatment of Africa herself. Black America, with her trillion-dollar economy, still gets no respect in this country. Police still kill us. They still treat us as second-class citizens. Part of that is due to the fact that Africa is where she is. I just came back from the UK. I just came back from France. I just came back from Cuba. Wherever you go, black folks are treated as second-class people. Even in your own nations, you're treated as second-class. The Arabs are treated better than you. The East Indians, even in an all-black country. And that's because until Africa stands, we can't stand. The respect given to the international homeland of a people is automatically projected on all members of that race. Chinese are respected around the world because China is respected. America is respected. Americans are respected around the world because America is respected. And black people around the world are disrespected because Africa is disrespected. So there's no such thing as separating the black American struggle from the indigenous African struggle. There's no such thing of separating the Jamaican struggle or the Haitian struggle or the United Kingdom struggle or the Canadian black struggle, or the black and Asian struggle. I just came back from China, and blacks are dealing with Chinese racism. All of that is a reflection that Africa is weak, and until we make her strong, we will never be either. And the last point of Pan-Africanism, in summary, of course, because it's longer than this, but I'm giving the essentials, is that we believe that your deity should never look like your enemy. If you want to be a Christian because we believe in religious self-determination. One of the reasons Garvey was more successful than all other leaders put together is because they put a religion on their movement. They made it a Muslim thing, they made it a Christian thing, they made it a Hebrew thing, they made it this thing. Garvey never put a religion on his movement, and that's why he built 15 million. 15 million. No internet, no cell phone, no airplane, none of that. 15 million. Because Garvey understood. Once you put a religion on the movement, you're going to isolate people. No matter how much you say everybody's invited, you're going to isolate people. So although we believe in religious freedom, we also believe that your deity shouldn't look like your enemy. So there is no white Jesus for a black man. Your God better look like you, because if you cannot see God in yourself, you will never see it anywhere else. And those are the 4 key points of Pan-Africanism.
That's why I wanted to start. I wanted to get, that was beautiful synopsis. I wanted to get that out there, because a lot of times in understanding how a person thinks or what they say comes from their belief system. So now when you challenge, because in my school, when I was in UCW for psychology, you wasn't around at that time. What caused you to challenge the field of psychology to the point that you have taken on issues of DNA, homosexuality, etc.? What made you challenge that based on your system?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that question, because the only other place that I've lived outside of the state of Pennsylvania has been the state of North Carolina. For a while, we lived in North Carolina when my mother and father were married, and he was in the Marine Corps. And while I was in North Carolina, I decided that I wanted to be a psychologist. It was in the state of North Carolina as a third grader that I decided I wanted to be a psychologist. And that stuck with me from the age of 8 until now. And I chose that only because I wanted to help other kids. I wanted to help them put smiles on their faces. I was the oldest boy that had a big brother. You know, it was kind of lonely without that big brother. So I said I want to be the big brother for other kids who need to talk, boys or girls. That's where the love came from, a desire to help. Now, you fast forward 20 years later, okay, now you're in college and you're learning. And then you're working as a school psychologist and you're seeing how psychology, the field you chose to help black children, is actually being used to hurt black children. And that's where the mission married the profession. The mission married the profession because I said, wait a minute, I got into this to help people. But y'all just want me to label kids with learning disabilities that they don't even have, autism, they don't even have, emotional disturbance, they don't even have. You know, I said, I can't do that. Then you want me to tell their parents that they need some medicine, some Ritalin, some Adderall, some Cyclip, some Concerta. And of course, all of this I'm going to be talking about Sunday in Raleigh at 4 o'clock. But it was the pain of my profession that naturally made me an activist, because there's no way that I can love kids the way that I do and participate in a profession that is looking to get paid off them and hurt them in the process.
And I'm going to throw this date out here just for my audience, 11/14/2012. That is when Dr. Johnson received his PhD. So that myth that's out there that you're not a certified doctor, we can clear that up. Go do the research.
Well, that came from enemies. That was generated. That whole thing actually got started by a idiot here in Philadelphia, who was a coworker of mine at a charter school. And the irony of that whole rumor is he knew more than anyone else that I was a certified school psychologist and a doctor, because we worked at the same school. He was the dean of students and I was the school psychologist. So when I needed to evaluate students, guess who brought them to my office? He did. So the same guy who started the rumor that I didn't have the credentials is the very same Negro who had to bring the student from the classroom to my office to get evaluated. And the reason he started that rumor is he was jealous. He had written a book, but his book never became successful. He tried to start a speaking career. He never became successful. So I became what he always wanted to be. And that's why the lie started. And you know, with black people, we never let the truth get in the way of a good lie. And it just got on social media and it picked up steam and it just ran. And the interesting thing about it is it's so easy to verify that. That's what makes it so disheartening. It's not like it's a secret society to know who has a doctorate. All you have to do is pick up the phone and call the registrar's office from the degree granting institution. It's only a phone call to find out. Yeah, but again, nobody wants the truth to get in the way. Yeah, nobody wants the truth to get in the way of a good lie.
Philadelphia College of Obstetric Medicine. I Googled it, and there it was 10/14/2012. The brother got it. What are they talking about? So let's go to talk ADHD. I know you got this coming out, and for you all that's in the audience, Sunday, come go to Raleigh, get on the highway, get to Raleigh. I'll give you the information at the end of the show. Make sure you get there on time, get a seat. He's going to be in Raleigh on Sunday and hopefully be back in Wilmington sometime soon. But talk to us. This ADHD, this ADHD. The whole, give us a little synopsis of where it got started and why it is so dangerous for black folks.
Well, number one, and let me say this, and thank you for putting that out there about Sunday, just to let your listening audience know, I will be speaking in Raleigh for the first time in 3 years. Last visit was 2015. I'll be at the Smith Temple Church, 322 Southeast Street, 322 Southeast Street, Sunday, September 2nd, 4 o'clock, doors at 2. All children, 17 and under free, all elders, 65 and older free, everyone else can get their tickets online, drumarjohnson.eventb.com. They can also get them at the door, so you can just show up as well. But all kids and elders are free. Now, ADHD came to us in 1980. It came to us in 1980. This is not a coincidence. This is the same year that the CIA dropped crack cocaine off in the black community. So to make a long story short, they started drugging up the kids the same time they were drugging up their daddies. They started drugging up our sons at the same time that they were drugging up our men and our women. So the drugs hit the school the same time they hit the streets. See, Ritalin, Adderall, Concerta, and Metadate. All of these are forms of synthesized cocaine. Ritalin acts upon the brain of a child the same way crack acts upon the brain of an addict. But here's the kicker. Although ADD came to us in 1980, it did not become ADHD until 1987. It took 7 years to add the H. And the reason it took 7 years to add the H is because there's no drug that can make your child pay attention. There's no drug that can make your child pay attention. So the drug companies, all of which publicly trade on Wall Street, another conflict of interest, because you got pathology versus profit. Pathology versus profit. The business of helping people while at the same time you're trying to make billions of dollars off of them. And that's what they make off these drugs. Child psychiatrics are worth no less than $30 billion a year. And I don't have to tell you that they are disproportionately prescribed to black boys to deal with an invisible, glow-in-the-dark disorder, this so-called ADHD. And I really do hope that all of the black North Carolina parents who have sons diagnosed with ADHD or conduct disorder or oppositional defiant disorder or currently have them on drugs, it's my hope that they all be at that church 4 o'clock on Sunday, because they need to understand that you're giving your child one of the most toxic substances on earth. It's poison. You're basically poisoning the child is what you're doing. And why? Because a white teacher told you he can't sit still long enough to learn. Well, guess what? I went to school. I didn't need drugs. You went to school. You didn't need drugs. All this is the pharmaceutical industry getting rich off of fatherless black boys who have never been taught discipline.
Gotcha. Be at that church on Sunday, y'all. You got to be at that church on Sunday, because brother's going to bring some more details on it. I know he's loaded up when it comes to that field of psychology. But I want to read a quote from Dr. King in 1958, because I want to go to another subject that you get beat up on, and I don't think people understand it, and I want you to explain it the way so they can understand. This was Dr. King in 1958 answering a question to a young man who said that he had feelings for other males. And Dr. King said this to him. He said, "Your problem is not at all uncommon one. However, it does require careful attention. The type of feelings you have toward boys is probably not an innate tendency, but something that has been culturally acquired." And that was Dr. King in 1958. As a Pan-African, I've been seeing you get beat up as a hate monger when it comes to people who you use the word sexually confused. Why do you get beat up and Dr. King gets a pass?
Well, I ain't sure if I'm getting beat up at all because I don't pay attention to the negativity, but I would say this. I agree with Dr. King, the tendency towards homosexuality in black children, and I'm speaking specifically of black children. And the reason I'm speaking specifically of black children is because all behavior is culturally determined. White people cannot tell black people what behavior is normal or not because we're not white. Chinese people cannot tell Arabs what behaviors are normal for them. They cannot do that. Behavior is determined by the culture. But because black people have lost so much of their culture and voluntarily participate in historical amnesia, trying to escape from their blackness, they would just go along with other white folks say. Now, let me say this. I don't hate, dislike. In fact, I have a degree of compassion for brothers and sisters who are sexually confused, because that's not an easy lifestyle to live. And for the boys and the males, many of them come to that lifestyle based on my 20 years of experience in the field. Not what no white man wrote in some scientific, so-called scientific study, but what I know dealing directly with homosexuals and lesbians is I know for a fact that most of the black ones come to that lifestyle by way of molestation as a child. I know that for a fact, and I don't need it verified by any white university. I know it from my own work with that population. Can't no white man tell me more than I know about a black man because I'm a black man. So we can kill that. They come to about homosexuality and molestation. They come to homosexuality by the molestation. Many of the gay black boys I've worked with, most of them were molested as children before the age of 12. And there seems to be something that triggers a continuation of a desire for that behavior, although they hate it because it was their first sex act. Let me say that again. They do not like it, at least not at first, but because it's the only thing they know. Their innocence was taken, And somewhere within the subconscious, they conclude that I must have been meant to be this way, because if I wasn't, this would have never happened to me. That's part of the core belief operating. So if I know that you come to homosexuality by way of child molestation, I have to care for you. I can't hate you, because this was the result of a psychological dysfunction, a maladjustment, an abnormality. So I don't hate no one. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions about me, is that I hate. Not at all. I got a homosexual black male, a lesbian black woman. This would have never happened. Call me up for conversation. That's part of the core belief. Yeah, I have them who call me up for conversations. You know, so there's gay and lesbian blacks who seek comfort or conversation in me, even though I don't agree with the lifestyle. So that tells you right there that not all LGBTs are against Dr. Umar, but the ones who are not against me will not speak up because they don't want to be chastised by that movement, which is a very powerful movement ever since Barack Obama got behind it and made it what it is today and used it to eclipse the black agenda, but yet he's still considered a hero by black folks, although he betrayed black folks. But getting back to the topic, homosexuality is being pushed in America today for no other reason than to reduce the population of blacks in this country and all across the world. African governments are being forced to adopt homosexual laws that are favorable to gays being married in exchange for the loans from the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. Why would the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund be concerned about homosexuality in Ghana, or be concerned about homosexuality in Haiti, or be concerned about homosexuality in South Africa or Nigeria? What does that have to do with national policy? Well, according to the white man, it has everything to do with national policy, because he's trying to control the amount of black folks being born in this world. And so homosexuality is the perfect population control weapon. And why? Because you prevent the egg from ever meeting the semen. If the boy doesn't even desire the girl. See, with abortion, you have to take the baby after it was conceived. With abortion, you have to take the baby after it was conceived. Okay? With police genocide, you got to take the life after it has already lived and may have made 4 babies. Black on black crime, you have to take the life after it was created and hope they pick up the dope and the guns and start killing each other. So all of those strategies are reactionary. Homosexuality is the only pro-actionary strategy, because what you do is you condition the mind of the boy to never be interested in cohabitation with the girl. And you do the same with her. You condition her to not be interested in males. In other words, you divert them from the natural order of things. And if you can prevent the boy from ever even wanting to touch the girl, and if you can prevent the girl from ever wanting to touch the boy, then you know what you do? Right there with that generation, you kill off the ancestral DNA of those two families. With homosexuality, you stop the reproduction of divine ancestral DNA. And that's what the homosexual movement is doing. And that's why Barack Hussein Obama was put in office, to homosexualize black America and homosexualize black Africa.
You're listening to WLTT 1188 1490 and also 104.9. We're talking with Dr. Umar Johnson, who will be in Raleigh, North Carolina this Sunday. We welcome him here to the city of Wilmington, North Carolina. As we talked earlier on the phone, I'm sure we're down here in Wilmington, North Carolina, and the last time Wilmington saw you was in the movie Wilmington on Fire, dealing with the massacre that happened here on 1898. First of all, what made shock you to do that segment of the movie and participate with Chris Everett in that project?
Well, the brother Chris Everett, shout out to him, he reached out to me. I was in Atlanta. That was many years ago. That was right at the beginning of my ascension into the conscious community. Because for the first 10 years of my work, from 2000 when I got my master's in psychology until 2010, most of my work was regional and local, and I was pretty much, known throughout Pennsylvania and the tri-state area of New Jersey and Delaware, but not much more beyond that. But in 2010, things kind of transformed for me, and I guess it was around 2011, 2012 that Brother Chris was able to catch up with me in Atlanta, Georgia, and he interviewed me for that piece. So anytime we're dealing with the history and connecting that history to the present and informing our people about what really happened so they can understand the political, economic time of day, I am all for that. Because as the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey said, he said, we can't take the kinks out of our hair, we should take the kinks out of our mind. And part of taking the kinks out of our mind is we have to re-Africanize the African psyche. because we have been, for 399 years, we have been forcibly traumatized by European consciousness. Next year, August 21st of 2019, will be 400 years in America. And I'm counting specifically from the beginning of oppression. I know we were here before 1619, but I'm talking about the oppression. My ancestors were not here in America before I got here. I happen to know who my ancestors were, and they came over on the slave ships. So I'm counting from 1619 until 2019. That means next summer will be 400 years of the black struggle in America, and we are still suffering the debilitating effects of post-traumatic slavery disease.
What would you say to the folks in Wilmington to get out of that? We was considered the black Mecca for North Carolina at one time, especially business-wise and education as well. What would you say that we need to do to, and I know you haven't been here yet, like, again, we plan to get you here in November. What would you say to us to get us energized, to get started on that process? Because it's a process long, well overdue here.
Well, the rehabilitation of African people in America, the American African, begins with two things: education and economics. You're not going to get anywhere, none of us, without education or economics. In other words, we have to create an educational paradigm, which is why I'm working on the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy. We have to create an educational paradigm for African children so that we can socialize them and psychologize them with a proper African-centered approach to life and unity, so that they can begin to work naturally to solve our problems. See, it's unnatural right now for black people to work to solve their problems. That's why we don't. It's unnatural for us to be concerned about our kids' education to the point that we want to build our own schools. It's unnatural for us to build our own hospitals and supermarkets. It's natural for the Chinese. It's natural for the Arabs to do it. It's natural for the Anglo-Saxons. It's natural for the Mexicans to just show up in America and start building an independent community. But black folks after 4 centuries can't even name one that they still have in existence today. Why? Because you were educated and socialized to function in the interest of racism. You were never educated and socialized to function in the interest of black folks. And that's why even now, our most educated minds, our most leading men and women, they don't work for us. They work for the benefit of the white power structure. Our athletes, our entertainers, our rappers, all black folks in the media, they don't work for the benefit of black folks. When they get some free time, they may do something small for Negroes, but 99% of their time is spent upholding, improving, and empowering the white reality. If you want to change that, you have to educate your own children. Because what we're trying to do is re-Africanize Europeanized minds. You're trying to re-Africanize black Anglo-Saxons. And as a psychologist, I can tell you, once a mind has been conditioned, my brother, once you condition a mind, let's take the U.S. military. And I wasn't in the military, but I went to military school. My father was in the military. Many of my friends were. You will go to basic training for maybe 2 or 3 months. You could be 30 years old, but after those 3 months of basic training, you will never think the same way again after only 3 months. Well, guess what, my brother? If the military can change your personality and your core values and your core beliefs in 3 months, imagine what it can do to you after 399 years. So if we want to save the African psyche, we cannot be trying to change people who have already been destroyed. We got to get the babies as youth and put them through the proper educational and socialization process so that they will never even think about dating a white girl. They will never even think about praying to a white Jesus. They will never even think about moving out the black community. They will never even think about giving their money to a non-African business. That's what we need to be about. But the problem is, that's called being proactive. Black people don't do proactive. We do reactive. We react to racism. And that's all black people do in America. We react to racism. We don't have an agenda for ourselves outside of racism. The only time you see black people stand together and do anything is when white folks have done something to piss us off. If white folks ain't messing with us, we ain't standing together. And why is that? Because there's no love there. There is no deep, genuine concern for the best interest of the group. See, there's something every other culture does that black people rarely do. Every other culture is where they are because they can subvert their own personal, selfish agenda for the best interest of the group. Black people ain't thinking about subverting their personal, selfish agenda for the best interest of the group. Negroes will destroy the whole race to make a dollar. And that's why we have more traitors than any other race, because we are more hopeless as a people than any other race. And if you want to change that, you got to build schools. And you know what's the sad thing about that is we only have about a dozen of independent African schools in America. A dozen. But we spend $9 billion on weave and perm every year. We spend $4 billion on liquor and alcohol every year. We spend $1 million on fast food, $2 billion on Air Jordans. We purchase twice the amount of Mercedes Benzes as white folk, but we have less than 1/3 of the wealth of white people. But yet our children don't have no schools. The truth is, white folks don't care about black kids, but black people don't care much about black kids either. Frederick Douglass said it best. It is better to raise strong children than to repair broken men. And until we understand the best time to get the minds of Africans is as children, until we grasp that reality and become proactive instead of waiting till they get 30 years old and they done been out of jail, but they sold drugs, they killed a few folks, they shot themselves, they already hating each other, frying their hair, wearing green contacts. We want to save people after they've been destroyed. How about we stop them from being destroyed in the first place?
Well, I'm listening to you talk, and I'm sitting here saying to myself, now I've been following you for years. I'm listening to brother. This one of my mentors. 1,000% I'm in agreement. How do we get past the, I'm gonna call it, my man didn't say it syndrome? What happens to me, it seems that anyone listening to you that has any kind of right mind when it comes to black people are going to agree. But a lot of times it's because my group didn't say it, or my man didn't say it, or he not with this group, or he not with that. How are we ever gonna get past that? Because we all saying the same thing. You established it earlier. It's coming right from God. It's coming right from the root. But then someone will come and say, well, no, this fact didn't come. It didn't come from that. It's coming from the same tree. How can we get that tree to blossom together in this country? Because if we don't do this, we are going to be extinct in a minute.
Oh, without question. Without question. Here's the thing. Within the black consciousness movement, we have to weed out those persons who are sincere about doing something to solve the problem versus those who just want to talk about it. So you can make a lot of money talking about the problem. You can get paid doing all kinds of stuff talking about the problem. But how many people do you see in the conscious community doing something about the problem? You see all these brothers on YouTube. You see all these sisters on YouTube. You see all these elders on YouTube talking and teaching and exchanging data and facts and history and culture, but hardly none of them. And I work with most of them, so I can say this. Hardly none of them are part of any movement or organization for change. And if you don't believe me, take your own poll. Call them up randomly and say, can you tell me what you are doing besides running your mouth and sharing information to address this problem? They're not doing nothing because they're getting too much money just talking about it. So you got to get the action. Get those who want to do versus those who just want to say. You got to separate those out, brother, because too often we're putting everybody in one pot. For example, people ask me all the time, why you don't work with him? Why you don't work with him? Why you don't work with her? Because they don't do anything but talk. They're not workers. I have a grassroots resume. I could go on for hours about what I do and how I do it, and people don't even know I do it because it ain't to be applauded. These folks ain't got nothing they can tell you they do in the community or have done. Most of the guys with a YouTube platform haven't done anything in the black community. You see, they're just talkers, but most of us are not serious about doing work either. And when you're not serious, it's very easy for you to follow people who are not serious either.
And let me throw this out here for those naysayers that may say, well, Umar does the same thing. I followed you over years, and you're one of the most conservative brothers when it comes to expenses, when it comes to bookings, and when it comes to what you're able to do. Because I know there are rates you could charge that would be extravagant, but you don't. It's very low key. You take care of your business. It's not, you don't have to be brought into a 5-star hotel. It's very reasonable. It's always been consistent. So that's why I want to throw that out there, because I know people gonna say, well, he does the same thing, but we all in this.
And the reason they say that partly is due to the fact that we live in a world where if you're not bragging about what you do on social networks, you're not doing it. We live in a world where if you're not posting it and tweeting it and Snapchatting it, if you're not filming your works don't exist. Well, guess what? You'll never see my work filmed for 2 reasons. Number one, the nature of my work is mental health. That is a very private and confidential work. You don't put people's personal business online and say, hey, I helped this person and helped that person and saved that person and helped this kid not go to jail and got this one off dope and got this one out of special ed and kept this mom from losing her kids. You don't put that type of stuff online because, number one, it's illegal professionally, but also spiritually that don't sit well with me. I can't brag about sensitive things like that. So when people see me, they say, well, wait a minute, I ain't seen the kids he helped. I ain't seen them. And you never will, because that's not how I do. I don't work like that, and my profession doesn't allow me to work like that, and my spirit won't even let me act like that. So I can sit here and say, I know for a fact there's no black person in this country that has saved more black boys than me. I know that for a fact. But I'm not going to go around posting a boy's pictures, and this is who I saved in Texas, and this is who I saved in Chicago, and this is who I saved in Jamaica, and this is who I saved in London, England. I'm not about that work. My works are recorded by my ancestors and my God, and I'm sufficient with that. I don't have nothing to prove to any Negro who can't name one thing that they've ever done for free for black folks.
True that. Respect that. Where's this level of... what are we going to do with the social media? You mentioned that, so I got to ask, what are we going to do with the social media? Because
social media is a double-edged sword. Obviously, there's benefits to it. One obvious benefit that I've gotten from social media, and I joined Facebook while I was completing my pre-doctoral internship 9 years ago in 2009. That's when I joined Facebook, because friends of mine was like, hey, you just need to get on it because of who you are. Right. So 2009, so I've been on it for 9 years, and it's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it's allowed me to get the word out about my mission and my movement almost for free. It allows me to spread the information about my lectures for free. You know, it's free advertising for those of us who are serious about the work. That right there for me is the number one benefit of social networking. Okay, it is free media for things that count. The negative side is it's also free media for the things that don't count. When I go through my Facebook feed or my Instagram feed, I'm seeing fights, I'm seeing sex scenes, I'm seeing gossip, I'm seeing arguments, I'm seeing this, I'm seeing all types of negativity that we do not need to be promoting to the world. Social network allows self-hating black people to create a platform from which they can spew their self-hatred 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, unfiltered. That is very dangerous, my brother. And that's why it's such a double-edged sword. And if I had to vote one way or another, you say, listen, Doc, we keep it or we get rid of it. I'm going to vote to get rid of it, brother, because I'm going to be honest with you. Since most of our people are unconscious and since most of our people are self-hating, that means most of what we use social network for is working against the black community and not for it. So if I had to vote, I would be voting to get rid of it because I clearly believe social network is doing more harm than good to black America.
I'm in agreement with you because I try to get off of it, but I can't. I'm locked into it. I use it for promotion. And some days I say, you know what, I'm going to take a month off Facebook. Or I'm so locked in, if I take a month off social media, then I have to go back to how I'm going to get the message out here for the show, how I'm going to get the shows out here. We're so locked into it, it's almost hard to get rid of now. Ask your last question, brother. What do we do with this? I know you were, I don't like to use the word critical. You gave us information on the last administration that other folks wouldn't give us. And I can say you was one of the first person out there that said once we got past Obama, we're going to be stuck in the same rut. And in some cases we are. Where do we go now politically in this climate? What should we as Pan-African people be focused on to get past this next 2, 4, however many years it take, so that we're together once this, we don't have to go start this thing all over again?
Well, number one, Black America needs to build a whole new political economy. We got to tear down our current political economy and build a different one. The current political economy we got is we have pastors that are dictating the way Black people vote and how Black people are spending their money. And then we have a marriage, a unholy alliance to the Democratic Party that has Black people thinking they got to vote for the Democrat no matter who the Democrat is all the time, every election, which basically has the Democratic Party taking you for granted and has the Republican Party totally ignoring you. We also have a very dysfunctional core belief in the Black community that says voting is the most important thing we can do to change our reality. That is the biggest lie I ever heard. We also have people saying that our ancestors died for us to vote, and so we have to vote in honor of them. That's also one of the biggest lies that I've ever heard. Our ancestors did not die for us to vote. They died for us to get free. They died for liberty and justice. Voting was simply the tactic that they felt during their time, not our time, during their time, that they thought would most likely deliver the justice and the equality, and we could clearly see that it has not. The most important thing that Black people can do in order to affect their reality and to create a new political economy going forward is to start using our money to influence our political agenda. We're the only people in America who do not use their money in a strategic, systemic fashion to influence their politics. Everyone else in America gets what they get because they use money to do it. One of the reasons the homosexual movement is so powerful is because the homosexual movement has special interest groups that finance political candidates. So people are going to be favorable to them because they'll put $5, $10, $15, $20 million in your campaign to make sure you pass laws and policies that are favorable to sexually confused populations. The same thing the feminist movement do. The reason why people are favorable to women is because many of them belong to the feminist movement, and the feminist movement has special interest groups that will put millions of dollars into your campaign. The reason people talk about education all the time is because the teachers union is so well financed that it'd be hard to get elected without their support. Black people can become a political force by organizing economically to influence the political agendas in the places where we live at. But we should not be so married to elections that we don't see the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is we can do more for ourselves and by ourselves in 5 years than we could ever do with 500 years of voting for people.
You've been listening to Dr. Umar Johnson here online at 1180 AM, 104.9 here at Gospel Joy. It's been a pleasure talking to you. He's going to be in Raleigh this Sunday. Give us that information again so we have that and that folks
yes,
can get that out.
Yes, indeed. School psychologist and author Dr. Umar Johnson will be back in Raleigh for the first time in 3 years. Smith Temple Church. That is the Smith Temple Church, Sunday, September 2nd. The address is 322 Southeast Street. Again, 322 Southeast Street in Raleigh. Sunday, September 2nd, 4 o'clock. Doors at 2 o'clock. All children and elders free. All college students, $10 with an ID. College students. Everyone else, get your tickets online. drumarjohnson.eventb.com, or you can get your tickets at the door. If any of your listeners need to reach me, if they're having an issue with their children, they need a private consultation, they can email me at drumarjohnson@yahoo.com, DRUMAR Johnson at yahoo.com, or they can call 844-4 Dr. Umar. That's 844-4 DRUMAR. And if anyone needs to text message me, and I want you to take my number as well, my brother, so you have it. I can be text messaged at 215-989-9858, 989-9858.
And I will definitely be texting the owner of the station, Brother James Utley, will be up there on Sunday, hopefully coming back to talk to you about coming down here on November for the, we're going to call it the Memorial of 1898 and November the 10th. So hopefully we can get you in the city. You folks that's listening, get up there on Sunday. Show some Wilmington love to Raleigh, so they can come down here when he comes here in November, because we're going to make this thing happen in November, brother. I've been trying to get this done for a year, and Brother Larry Thomas is online right now as well, so we're going to make this thing happen. We're going to get you down here in the city. It's been a pleasure, brother. Love you as always, Prince, and keep doing what you're doing and always keep running, brother.
Thank you, my brother. Be blessed.
Be blessed. Peace.